He protected the refugee children with his life. Their guardian couldn't resist him. The cargo bay door exploded inward with a shriek of tortured metal. Dax Coulter rolled left as the first boarding drone cleared the breach. He came up firing, 3 shots that ruptured its core in sparking fury. 2 more drones followed, red targeting beams cutting through smoke. He launched upward from a cargo container, twisting midair. The drone's AI tried predicting human movement. They always made the same mistake, assuming logic ruled the battlefield. Dax fired inverted. The first drone's sensors shattered. Blind, it crashed into its companion. He landed hard, rolled, and destroyed both cores. The bay fell silent, except for dying hydraulics. Rifle up, he slapped the emergency lockdown. Blast doors slammed shut. Red emergency lighting bathed everything in blood. "Captain Coulter, status report," came the voice through his comm, female, precise, devoid of inflection. 3 drones down, bay secured, he said, moving toward the damage. His side ached, but he pushed it aside. "Inefficient," the voice responded. "You exposed yourself to hostile fire 4 times. "I'm alive, they're not," he said, examining twisted metal. Military-grade explosives, sloppy placement, amateur raiders. "I'm coming to assess the damage," she said after a pause. "Negative, stay with the children." "The children are secure. I am coming." The comm clicked off. Dax winced as something pulled wrong in his ribs. He touched his side briefly, the familiar ache. Not from the landing, the one that made this his last run. The door cycled open. She stepped through like a blade cutting silk. Emergency lighting turned her green skin deeper, made her horns look blood-dipped. Serath moved to the breach, yellow eyes scanning damage with cold efficiency. Dax had seen plenty of aliens in 15 years, but Jorvathi still caught him off guard. How close to human they looked in some ways, how alien in others. She crouched by the door, fingers running over twisted metal. White hair fell forward, seeming to glow. Her armor highlighted every curve, dark material with metallic blue accents. "Raiders," she said, "Krev-class boarding drones, testing our defenses." She stood, yellow eyes locking onto his. The Jorvathi prided themselves on logic. Emotions were evolutionary dead ends their species had bred away. 3 days, trapped in this ship. 3 days of her looking at him like a bacteria sample. "You're injured," she said. "I'm fine." "Your breathing is irregular. You're favoring your left side." "Landed wrong." She moved closer. He caught her scent, lightning after a storm, sharp and electric. Her horns caught the light. "Inefficient," she said. "A commander who injures himself protecting material goods." "Not protecting goods," Dax said quietly. "Protecting them." He gestured toward the children's quarters. Something flickered across her features. "The children are my responsibility," she said. "You were hired to pilot and provide security, nothing more." "Then I'm securing the vessel. By throwing yourself at drones. By making sure nothing gets through." They stood in the damaged bay, surrounded by wreckage. The ship hummed, engines straining through hostile space. Distant, one of the children cried out. A nightmare, quickly soothed. Serath's jaw tightened. Dax had learned to watch for small signs. Tiny fissures where something not entirely logical leaked through. "We need to repair this breach," she said, moving to supply lockers. "The next attack comes within 6 hours." "How many ships tracking us?" 3 confirmed, possibly 5. 2.5 days to sanctuary. 2 days, 17 hours, 43 minutes, she corrected, handing him a welding torch. They worked in silence. Dax held plating while Serath welded, throwing blue-white sparks. Sweat ran down his back. The ache in his side spread to a deeper burn. "Not yet," he told his failing body. "You checked on them last night," Serath said suddenly, "at 300 hours. Heard one crying. Kira, nightmares about the colony attack. Most of them probably do." The torch paused. She looked at him over the plating. "Does it bother you?" she asked. "What?" "That they're not human, that you're risking your life for alien children." Dax held her gaze. "Does it bother you that I don't care?" Something shifted in her expression. She returned to welding, movements less mechanical. "Jorvathi psychology suggests such altruism is inefficient," she said. "Resources should be allocated based on genetic relationship." Fancy way of saying I should only care about my own. an observation based on biological imperative. He waited until she set down the torch. When she straightened, he was closer than she'd expected. "I had a daughter," he said quietly. "She died in an evacuation that failed because people decided some lives were worth more than others. So yeah, I care about these kids. All of them, because nobody should die alone and afraid while people debate their value." Serath stood perfectly still, but her eyes, those strange yellow eyes, were different now, wider, searching. She stopped. Her hand moved to her throat, touching the hollow there. "That explains your profile. Loss-driven motivation." "It explains why I took this job," Dax said, stepping back. "We should check the other bays." She nodded, still watching him. They gathered tools and headed for the door. As Dax reached for the panel, the emergency klaxon screamed. Red lights strobed. "Captain, multiple contacts inbound, collision alert!" Echo's voice crackled, almost panicked. The ship lurched violently. Dax grabbed for the wall as gravity shifted. Serath stumbled. He caught her arm, pulling her toward him as equipment crashed around them. They hit the wall together, his body between hers and a falling container that would have crushed her skull. Metal screamed. Something massive struck the hull. Lights died, leaving only blood-red emergency runners. Then the breach alarm shrieked, not from their bay, but somewhere deeper, close to the children's quarters. Dax met Serath's eyes in crimson darkness, her hand pressed against his chest, over his pounding heart. For the first time since they'd met, he saw something in her face that might have been fear. "Go," she said. They ran. The corridor twisted like a throat. Dax's boots hammered against deck plating, Serath half a step behind. The breach alarm screamed through the ship. They rounded the corner to the children's section. Smoke billowed from a ruptured panel. Through the haze, Dax saw their door, sealed but buckling inward. "Echo status," Dax barked. "Hull breach in adjacent storage, pressure contained, but, Captain, I'm reading movement. Something came through." Dax raised his rifle as a figure emerged. Humanoid but wrong, too tall, limbs bent at angles that shouldn't work. A scavenger suit, jury-rigged and leaking. The raider's helmet turned toward them, sensors glowing red. Dax fired. The raider moved with unnatural speed, rounds burning past where it had been. It launched itself at him. He dropped, letting momentum carry it over, rolled, came up firing. This time he led the target. Plasma caught its shoulder, spinning it into the wall. Behind him, the children's door shuddered. Small fists pounded inside, young voices crying out. The raider recovered too fast. Dax saw stimulants flooding through visible tubes, illegal augments. It charged again, no room to evade. They collided. Impact drove air from Dax's lungs, sent his rifle clattering. The raider's weight crushed him against metal. Hands closed around his throat, too many fingers. Then Serath was there. She moved like water given purpose. Her hand found a neural cluster at the raider's neck, pressed with surgical precision. The grip loosened. She redirected it away from Dax using its momentum. The raider staggered. Serath's other hand came up with a medical injector. She jabbed it into the suit's exposed section, depressed the plunger. Whatever she'd injected hit fast. The raider convulsed, collapsed, twitching. Dax pushed himself up, ribs screaming, "What was that?" "Neural suppressant," Serath said, moving past the fallen raider. The children's door burst open. Kira stood backlit by emergency lighting, developing horns sharp in the red glow. Behind her, the others clustered together. "Captain," she said, remarkably calm, "are there more?" Dax retrieved his rifle. "Echo?" That was the only one, but the breach is still open. More could follow. "The medical bay," Dax said, "more central, reinforced. We seal them there, then fix the breach." "That means leaving them," Serath said. Their eyes met. He saw calculation in her gaze, but underneath something else, something that looked like fear. "They'll be safer there than here," Dax said. She held his stare, then nodded. Moving the children took 4 minutes that felt like hours. Dax led, rifle up. Serath brought up the rear, hand on the youngest shoulder. The medical bay's door was reinforced steel. Dax swept the interior. Empty. Secure. Inside, he said, "Stay from the walls, stay quiet." They filed in with practiced obedience. Kira paused in the doorway. "You'll come back," she said. "I'll come back," Dax confirmed. Something in her eyes made him think of his daughter, that same fierce intelligence, that same trust. Kira's small green hand wrapped around his for just a moment. "Promise." "I promise." The door sealed. Dax stood staring at reinforced metal, feeling the weight of that promise. "You shouldn't make promises you can't guarantee," Serath said quietly. "Then I better make sure I can keep it." They ran back to the breach with salvaged tools. The storage compartment was chaos, debris everywhere, external wall torn open to vacuum. Only the emergency containment field kept them from space, and it flickered unstably. Dax assessed the damage. Serath worked beside him, hands moving with precision. When their fingers brushed reaching for the same tool, she froze. Just for a moment, then pulled back, returned to work. But something had changed. The narrow space, the danger, the adrenaline. It created pressure that made every breath significant. "Hold this," Serath said, positioning a support beam. Dax moved behind her, arms reaching around to grip it while she welded. The position put them close, his chest against her back, his breath stirring her hair. He could feel her heartbeat, faster than it should be. The welding torch flared, blue-white light danced across green skin. Sweat ran down her neck, disappearing beneath her armor's collar. "Almost done," she murmured. The ship shuddered. "Proximity alarms?" "Captain," Echo said, voice tight, "3 raider ships just dropped out of FTL, boxing us in." Dax's jaw clenched. "Time to intercept?" 15 minutes, maybe less." "We need to move faster," he said. "I'm moving as fast as physics allows," Serath replied, strained. Another weld, another support, the field stabilized fractionally. "There," Serath said, stepping back. "That should hold." The field collapsed. Vacuum pulled at them. Dax grabbed Serath's arm, other hand finding a strut. The emergency bulkhead slammed shut, trapping them in the corridor. They hit the wall together. Dax twisted, taking impact on his shoulder. Pain exploded through his ribs, the old injury. His vision grayed. Then Serath was above him, hands on his chest. "Dax," she said, "his name?" He opened his eyes. Her face filled his vision, alien features beautiful with concern. Her hand pressed over his heart, feeling its unsteady rhythm. "I'm fine," he managed. "You're not. Your cardiovascular system is under extreme stress." "I'm fine," he repeated, pushing up. She didn't move back, staying close enough that their faces were inches apart. This close, he could see fine details of her skin, the way her pupils dilated, the color shift in her horns. This close, she wasn't alien. Just a woman, afraid and alive and looking at him like he mattered. "We should move," she whispered. "Yeah," he said. Neither moved. The ship shook, raider weapons fire. The moment shattered, they pulled apart, stood. "Bridge," he said. "If we're surviving 3 raider ships, I need to fly manually." They made it to the bridge in 90 seconds. Dax dropped into the pilot's seat, hands flying across controls. Behind him, Serath slid into co-pilot, fingers working tactical displays. "Shields at 40%, she reported, weapons offline, engines at 62%. "So we can't fight and we can't run," Dax said. "Perfect." The view screen showed 3 raiders closing in encirclement. Professional, coordinated. "Echo, give me every scrap of power from non-essential systems," Dax ordered. "That gives you maybe 5% more, not nearly enough." "Don't need to outrun them," Dax said, studying the tactical display. "Just need to outthink them." His eyes tracked the debris field they'd crashed through earlier. Unstable, dangerous, filled with chunks of destroyed station. No sane pilot would fly through deliberately. "Captain," Serath said slowly, following his gaze, "you're not seriously—" "Hold on," Dax said, and threw the ship into a hard dive. The transport screamed. Dax's hands moved with 15 years of muscle memory, making micro-adjustments that kept them from smearing across spinning fragments. "They're following," Serath said, voice tight. "Of course they are." A raider tried cutting them off. Dax rolled the transport, scraping within meters of a tumbling chunk. The raider had to pull up. "Shields down to 30%, Serath reported. "Better than plasma fire," Dax said through gritted teeth. Another raider appeared starboard, weapons charging. Dax cut thrust, let momentum carry them, while he fired maneuvering jets sideways. The transport slid like a stone across ice. The raider's shot burned through empty space. Impossible, Serath breathed. Just geometry, Dax said, but his hands shook. The pain in his side was spreading, sharp to dull to ice. He'd pushed too hard. The injuries supposed to kill him slowly were suddenly hurrying. Dax, Serath said. Her hand closed over his on the controls, warm, steady when his shook. I can't do this without you, she said quietly. The admission cost her. He could see it in her jaw, her rigid spine. Then it's good you won't have to, Dax said. He pushed engines to maximum, racing toward a gap. Behind them, 2 raiders followed. The third had broken off, too smart. The gap narrowed. The ship's computer screamed collision warnings. Dax ignored it all and threaded the needle. They burst through into clear space. Behind them, 1 raider tried to follow. A spinning fragment caught it, sent it careening. The explosion bloomed, brief and bright. The second raider pulled up. Clear, Echo said, surprised. We're actually clear. Dax let out a held breath. His vision swam. The controls felt far away. Dax, Serath said, alarmed. Check on the kids, he said. You need... The kids first, he said, always. His vision went black at the edges. The pain wasn't ice anymore, it was nothing. He felt Serath's hands catch him as he fell, heard her voice saying his name, urgent and afraid and far away. Then nothing. Dax woke to white light and the smell of antiseptic, medical bay. He tried to sit up and pain lanced through his torso, sharp enough to steal his breath. Don't move, Serath said. She sat beside the medical bed, still in her damaged armor. Smudges of carbon scoring marked the blue accents. Her white hair was loose, falling past her shoulders instead of pulled back. She looked exhausted. How long? Dax asked, his voice rough. 4 hours. The children are safe. We're still on course to sanctuary. 18 hours out. He processed that. 18 hours. They'd made it through the worst. And you've been here the whole time. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway, yes. Dax looked down at himself. His shirt was gone, replaced by medical sensors adhered to his chest and abdomen. Through the transparent overlay of a dermal regenerator, he could see the bruising, dark purple spreading across his ribs like spilled ink. How bad? He asked. Serath's jaw tightened. She stood, moved to the medical console, pulled up a holographic display. His body rotated there in blue light, and even he could see the damage. Internal bleeding, partially collapsed lung, fractures. You should be dead, she said flatly. By Jorvathi medical standards, you are dead. Your body is running on... She paused, searching for the word. Stubbornness. That sounds about right. This isn't a joke, Dax. She turned to face him, and her eyes were different. The cold, analytical distance was gone. You have days, maybe a week if you stop doing insane things like manual piloting through debris fields while bleeding internally. Had to get us out. I could have piloted. You were needed for shields and tactical. Echo could have... Echo's damaged, you know that. Dax met her gaze. It had to be me. Serath stood there, hands clenched at her sides. Her horns had darkened to deep crimson. He'd noticed that happened when she was emotional, though she'd never acknowledged it. Why? She asked, voice tight. Why would you take a mission like this knowing you were dying? What possible logic? There isn't any logic, Dax said. My daughter died because someone decided she wasn't worth saving. I couldn't save her, but I could save them. At the cost of your own life. I was dying anyway. At least this way it meant something. Serath was silent for a long moment. Then she moved back to the bed, sat down. Closer this time. Close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. Jorvathi philosophy teaches that self-sacrifice for non-kin is evolutionary waste, she said quietly. That emotions are chemical reactions that cloud judgment. That logic should govern all decisions. You don't sound convinced. I'm not. Her hand moved to his, fingers tracing the line of sensors on his wrist. I've watched you for 3 days. Watched you check on the children at night when you thought I was asleep. Watched you take injuries meant for others. Watched you fly like you were born to it, protecting cargo you'd never met until this mission. Her yellow eyes met his. Jorvathi would call it inefficient, wasteful, proof that emotion makes humans weak. And what do you call it? Dax asked. Beautiful, she whispered. The word hung between them. Serath looked almost shocked she'd said it, but she didn't take it back. My people bred away our emotions 10,000 years ago, she continued. We decided feeling was weakness. That logic alone could guide us to perfection, and we achieved great things: technology, longevity, empire. She touched her throat, that gesture he'd noticed before. But we lost something too. I didn't know what until I met you, until I watched you choose these children over your own survival without hesitation, until I felt... She stopped, breath catching. Felt what? Dax asked softly. Everything, Serath said. Fear when you were fighting, relief when you survived, anger at the raiders, and when you collapsed. Her voice broke slightly. Terror, absolute terror at the thought of losing you. Dax reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing across green skin. The Jorvathi would call you defective, he said. Yes, I'd call you human. I'm not human. No, Dax said, pulling her down to him despite the pain it caused. You're better. Their lips met, and Serath made a small sound, surprise or relief or both. Her hand came up to his face, mirroring his gesture. The kiss was tentative at first, then deeper. She tasted like electricity and something sweet he couldn't name. When they finally pulled apart, her eyes were wide, pupils dilated. Her horns had shifted color again, lighter now, almost rose-tinted. I've never, she started. Neither have I, Dax said. Not with someone who mattered this much. Serath studied his face like she was trying to memorize it. You're still dying. Yeah. And in 18 hours we reach Sanctuary, the children will be safe, and you'll have... maybe a week. Unacceptable, Serath said, and there was steel in her voice now. She stood, moved back to the medical console, fingers flying across controls. There are procedures, experimental. My people developed them but banned their use because they require... She stopped, staring at the data. Require what? Dax asked. Serath turned to face him. Emotional energy. The techniques work by channeling neurochemical responses, fear, love, desperation, into cellular regeneration. But Jorvathi don't feel anymore. We can't use our own advances because we bred away the fuel they need. But you feel now, Dax said, understanding. Yes. She moved back to him, sat on the edge of the bed. I could save you, transfer enough emotional resonance to trigger your body's repair systems. But it would mark me, change my neural pathways permanently. I could never go back to what I was. My people would exile me. That's too much to ask, Dax said. You're not asking. I'm offering. Her hand found his again. I've spent 3 days watching you choose others over yourself. Let me make one choice for you. Serath, I don't want to go back, she said fiercely, to the cold logic, to the emptiness. These 3 days with you, feeling everything, fear and hope and whatever this is between us, I've been more alive than in all my years before. She leaned down, her forehead touching his. Let me save you, please. Dax searched her face, seeing the determination there, the fear underneath, the hope. What do you need me to do? Just feel, Serath said. Everything you're feeling right now, don't hide it. Her hands moved to his temples, fingers pressing against specific points. He felt warmth spread from the contact, then heat. His body lit up with sensation, pain and healing and something else, something flowing between them. Serath's eyes closed, her face tightening with concentration. The warmth became fire, became energy coursing through his veins. He could feel his body responding, cells knitting back together, bleeding stopping, fractures fusing. But he could also feel her fear bleeding into his, her determination, her... love. The realization hit him like a physical force. She loved him, impossible, improbable, but undeniable. And he... Serath, he gasped. Her eyes opened and they were glowing faintly, golden light pouring from dilated pupils. Tears ran down her face, the first time he'd seen her cry. The first time she'd cried in her life, probably. I feel you, she whispered. Everything you are, everything you've lost, everything you want to protect. The energy peaked, then slowly ebbed. Serath's hands fell away from his temples. She swayed and Dax caught her, pulling her down beside him on the medical bed. They lay there, breathing hard, tangled together. Did it work? Dax asked. Serath pressed her hand to his chest, over his heart. Your cardiovascular system is stabilizing. Internal bleeding stopped. You'll need more treatment. But, yes, it worked. What did it cost you? She looked at him, and her expression was raw in a way he'd never seen, vulnerable and open and utterly transformed. "Everything I was," she said, "everything I'll never be again." She smiled, and it was beautiful. "Worth it." Dax pulled her closer, ignoring the remaining pain. "When we get to Sanctuary—" "I'll be exiled from Jorvathi space," Serath said, "marked as defective, forbidden from returning." "Then we'll find somewhere else to go," Dax said, "together." Serath's smile widened. She kissed him again, slower this time, savoring it. When she finally pulled back, she rested her head on his shoulder. 18 hours to Sanctuary. We should rest." "Should check on the children," Dax said. "They're sleeping. Echo's monitoring them. For once, let someone else keep watch." Dax wanted to argue, but exhaustion pulled at him. The healing had drained them both, and Serath was warm against him, her breathing falling into rhythm with his. 18 hours, he murmured. "Together," she whispered back. They slept tangled in each other, healing and hoping and dreading what came next. Dax woke to the sound of laughter. Children's laughter. Real laughter, not the subdued, frightened sounds from before. He opened his eyes to find Serath watching the monitor showing the children's quarters. On screen, Kira was teaching the younger ones some kind of game, her small hands moving in patterns. The others tried to follow, dissolving into giggles. "They know they're safe," Serath said softly. "We're 12 hours from Sanctuary." Dax sat up carefully. His body still ached, but it was surface pain now, bruises and strains, not the deep killing damage. He could feel the difference in every breath. Serath turned to face him. In the medical bay's light, he could see the changes. Her eyes held depth they hadn't before, expressions more fluid. Even her posture was different, less rigid, more natural. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Strange," she said. "Everything feels amplified. The children's laughter makes my chest tight. Looking at you makes me—" She stopped, color rising in her cheeks. "Makes you what?" Dax prompted. "Want things I don't have words for," Serath said quietly. "Jorvathi language doesn't have vocabulary for this." Dax stood, closed the distance between them. "Then we'll find new words." He kissed her, slow and deep. She responded immediately, hands coming up to his chest. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, her horns had shifted to rose-tinted. "We should check the ship's status," Serath said, but didn't move away. "Should," Dax agreed. A sharp alarm cut through the moment. They pulled apart, instantly alert. Dax moved to the console. "Echo report," he said. "We've got a problem, Captain," the AI said, voice tight. "Long-range sensors just picked up a signature. It's Vorjak's command ship. Intercept course." Dax's blood went cold. "How long until intercept?" 8 hours. They'll catch us 4 hours before we reach Sanctuary." Dax pulled up the tactical display. Vorjak's ship was massive, a hunter-class vessel. With their damaged systems, they had no chance in a straight fight. "Options," he asked. "We could dump cargo, increase speed," Echo suggested, "but we'd only gain maybe 30 minutes. "We could broadcast distress to Sanctuary," Serath said. "They won't make it in time," Dax said, "and Vorjak would just retreat and try again later." "Then what do we do?" Serath asked. Dax looked at her, then at the monitor showing the children. Kira had stopped her game, looking toward the ceiling as if sensing something wrong. "We end it," Dax said. He began working the console, pulling up schematics, weapon systems, power distribution. A plan formed, dangerous, probably suicidal, but possible. "Captain," Echo said warily, "I recognize that look." "We can't outrun them and we can't outgun them," Dax said, "so we surprise them." He outlined the plan. With each word, Serath's expression shifted from skepticism to understanding. "That's insane," she said when he finished. "It'll work. It requires split-second timing and assumes at least 3 damaged systems function perfectly." "Yeah," Dax said, "but it'll work." Serath stared at him. Then, impossibly, she smiled. "Jorvathi would call this the worst tactical decision possible." "And what do you call it?" "Human," she said, "brilliant and stupid and somehow exactly right." They spent the next 6 hours preparing. Dax rerouted power systems, coaxing damaged circuits into one more performance. Serath worked on weapons, calibrating them for precision they weren't designed for. The children stayed secured. Kira knew something was happening. Dax could see it when he checked on them, but she kept the others calm, told them stories. "You're good with them," Serath said, watching through the monitor. "Had practice," Dax said quietly. "Before." Serath's hand found his. "Tell me about her, your daughter." Dax was quiet, memories rising. Her name was Emma. She was 7, liked to draw planets she'd never seen, make up stories about aliens who became friends. He smiled despite the ache. "She would have liked you." "I would have liked her," Serath said. They stood together in silence, fingers intertwined until the proximity alarms began. "Contact in 30 minutes, Echo announced. Vorjak is hailing us." "Put him through," Dax said. The view screen flickered. Vorjak's face filled the display, reptilian features, cold eyes, mandibles clicking. "Captain Coulter," Vorjak said, voice like grinding gravel, "surrender the cargo and I'll let you live. Refuse, and I'll take them from your wreckage." "The cargo," Dax said flatly. "You mean the children?" "Jorvathi refugees command excellent bounties. Business, Captain. Nothing personal." "It's personal to me," Dax said. Vorjak's mandibles clicked. Laughter, maybe. "Then die with them. You have 2 minutes." The screen went dark. Dax turned to Serath. She was already moving to her station, hands flying across controls. Her face was set with determination, eyes holding something new, righteous fury. "These are children," she said, voice low and dangerous. "He talks about them like merchandise." "Yeah," Dax said. "Jorvathi philosophy says revenge is illogical, that anger clouds judgment." "And what do you say?" Serath's smile was sharp as broken glass. "That some people need to learn there are consequences." "Positions," Dax said. "Here we go." Vorjak's ship closed in, weapons charging. On the view screen, Dax could see its massive profile, a predator moving in for the kill. "He's powering weapons," Echo reported, "targeting our engines." "Let him get closer," Dax said calmly. Closer. The distance narrowed. Vorjak was confident, careless. "Now." Serath fired the maneuvering thrusters. All of them, in a pattern that made no tactical sense. The transport spun wildly, looking like they'd lost control. The spin brought their cargo bay doors in line with Vorjak's ship. The doors blew open, explosively decompressing. Everything not secured, debris from the raider they'd killed, equipment they'd rigged, shot out into space. Right into Vorjak's path. His ship tried to evade, but momentum betrayed him. The debris cloud hit his forward shields, overloading them. "Their shields are down," Serath reported, voice exultant. "Forward section exposed." "Fire," Dax said. Serath pressed the trigger. Their single remaining plasma cannon, overcharged, calibrated, aimed with perfect precision, fired once. The shot punched through Vorjak's exposed bridge, through the weakened armor, through the life support systems beyond. Vorjak's ship shuddered, began to drift. Atmosphere vented from the wound. No explosion, just a clean kill shot. "Target neutralized," Echo said, sounding stunned. That actually worked. Dax let out a breath. Beside him, Serath was shaking. Adrenaline, emotion, everything flooding through her at once. He pulled her into his arms. She buried her face against his neck. "It's over," he said. "No," she whispered, and when she pulled back to look at him, her eyes were bright with tears and something that looked like hope. "It's just beginning." She kissed him then, hard and desperate and full of everything she'd discovered she could feel. He kissed her back with equal intensity, hands tangling in her white hair, pulling her closer despite his injuries. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Serath pressed her forehead to his. 4 hours to sanctuary," she whispered. 4 hours and the children are safe, and we figure out what comes next, Dax finished. "Together," she said. "Together," he agreed. Echo cleared its metaphorical throat. "Hate to interrupt the moment, but we should probably tell the children they can stop hiding now." Do it. On the monitor, he watched Kira's face light up when Echo delivered the news. The other children erupted in cheers, hugging each other, crying with relief. Serath watched them, hand over her heart. "They're going to make it. We actually did it." "We did," Dax said, pulling her close again. "Now we just have to land this thing." 4 hours stretched ahead of them. 4 hours until sanctuary, until the children found safety, until Dax and Serath had to face what they'd become to each other, and what that meant for a future neither had expected to have. But for now they stood together on the bridge, watching the stars, and let themselves hope. Sanctuary came into view like a promise kept. The planet hung against the black, green, and blue, clouds swirling white across its surface. Dax had seen 1,000 worlds from orbit, but this one felt different. Beginning final approach, he said, hands steady on the controls. Echo, transmit our credentials. Already done, Captain. They're clearing us for landing pad 7. Beside him, Serath worked the navigation console, but her eyes kept drifting to the viewport. She'd been quiet since they'd defeated Vorjak. What happens when we land? She asked quietly. Dax knew what she was really asking. The children get processed, placed with families. We submit reports. And then you get flagged in the Jorvathi database as defective, exiled, and I get medical treatment. Serath's hand found his on the controls. We could disappear, take new names, find some outer rim colony. We could, Dax said, or we could stay, build something here. Together, she said, testing the word. If you want, Dax said, meeting her eyes. I know it's fast, 3 days isn't. 3 days where I learned to feel everything, Serath interrupted. 3 days where you showed me what it means to choose others over yourself. My people will never accept what I've become, but I don't want to go back to what I was. Cold, empty, half alive. Then don't, Dax said simply. The ship shuddered as they entered atmosphere. Behind them, the children's excited voices rose. Landing in 5 minutes, Echo announced. Serath moved to the internal monitor. The children pressed against viewports, watching the world rise to meet them. Kira held 2 younger ones, pointing at features below. They're going to have real lives, Serath said softly. Families, safety, futures. Because of you, Dax said, because you chose to feel instead of calculate. Because of us, she corrected. The landing pad appeared below, a cleared space surrounded by modular buildings. People gathered, ground crews and officials, a welcoming committee. Dax brought the ship down with practiced precision, felt the landing struts make contact, heard the engines cycle to silence. For the first time in 4 days, they weren't moving, weren't running, weren't fighting. They were safe. Well, Echo said, that was significantly more exciting than advertised. The cargo ramp began to lower. Dax stood, held out his hand to Serath. She took it without hesitation. Together, they walked to the passenger compartment. The children were gathering their few belongings, buzzing with nervous energy. When Kira saw them, she ran over and wrapped her arms around Dax's waist. We made it, she said. You kept your promise. Always, Dax said, kneeling to her level. Now you get to have the childhood you deserve. Will you visit? Kira asked. Dax glanced at Serath, saw her nod. Yeah, kid, we'll visit. Kira threw her arms around Serath next. The Jorvathi woman stiffened, then slowly, carefully hugged the girl back. When Kira pulled away, Serath's eyes were wet. Thank you, Kira said to both of them, for being brave enough to care. Administrator Wellis met them at the ramp's bottom. A middle-aged human woman with kind eyes. She had a team with her, people trained to help traumatized children. Captain Coulter, Guardian Serath, Wellis said, shaking their hands. The children are safe now. We'll take excellent care of them. Dax watched the children file off, each one looking back as they went. Some waved, some smiled, some cried. All of them were alive. There are irregularities in your documentation, Wellis said, pulling out a datapad. Guardian Serath, your neural scan shows unusual patterns. I used forbidden techniques to save Captain Coulter's life, Serath said calmly. I'm aware this marks me as defective by Jorvathi standards. Wellis studied her. The Jorvathi Concordat will likely issue an exile order, but Sanctuary doesn't recognize such orders as binding. If you wish to stay here, you're welcome. Serath's fingers tightened around Dax's hand. I wish to stay. Then stay, Wellis said simply. We can always use people willing to help refugees. She turned to Dax. Medical scans show extensive trauma. You'll need to remain grounded for at least 2 months while you recover. Understood, Dax said. Which brings me to a proposal, Wellis continued. Sanctuary processes thousands of refugees annually. We need experienced pilots and guardians to run protection missions. The pay isn't great, the work is dangerous, but— We'll do it, Dax said, looking at Serath. She nodded. Both of you? Wellis asked, surprised. Both of us, Serath confirmed. Someone has to make sure the children make it home. Wellis smiled. Then welcome to Sanctuary. Report to my office in 2 days and we'll discuss your first mission. She walked away, shepherding the last children toward the processing center. Kira turned back one final time, waved frantically. Dax waved back until she disappeared into the building. Then it was just him and Serath, standing on the landing pad under an alien sun, holding hands. So, Serath said, we're doing this, living here, running missions together, building something that didn't exist 4 days ago. Sounds about right, Dax said. It's illogical. We barely know each other. We're from different species. I've been exiled from my people. You were dying a week ago. And now? Serath turned to face him fully, both hands coming up to frame his face. And now I'm alive, really alive, for the first time in my existence. She kissed him, and it wasn't desperate or urgent like before. It was something else, a promise, a beginning, a choice made with open eyes and full hearts. When they pulled apart, Dax rested his forehead against hers. Your people are going to say you made the wrong choice. That emotion made you weak. Let them, Serath said. I'd rather be weak and feel everything than strong and feel nothing. They stood there as the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows. Somewhere in the processing center, children were laughing, beginning new lives. Somewhere in the void behind them, raiders and enemies waited for the next mission. But here now, in this moment, there was only peace. Come on, Dax said, taking her hand. Let's find out where we live now. Together, Serath said. Together, he agreed. They walked away from the ship that had carried them through hell toward a future neither had expected. Behind them, Echo's voice crackled over the external speakers. Try not to get shot for at least a week, would you? Some of us need a vacation. Dax laughed, really laughed, the sound surprising him. Serath joined him, the sound musical and unfamiliar to her own ears, but beautiful nonetheless. They had survived, they had saved 17 lives, and in the process they had saved each other. The sanctuary world stretched out before them, green and growing and full of possibility. Somewhere out there, more refugees needed protection. More children needed guardians. Dax had spent the last year accepting his death, waiting for the end. Now, walking hand in hand with a woman who'd given up everything for the chance to feel, he realized he'd been given something more valuable than time. He'd been given a reason to live. And Serath, who'd spent centuries believing emotions were weakness, had discovered the truth her people had forgotten, that feeling everything, even the pain, was what made existence worth having. They reached the edge of the landing pad, paused to look back at their battered ship one last time. Think she'll fly again? Serath asked. With enough work, Dax said. Everything can be fixed if you care enough to try. Serath squeezed his hand. Is that philosophy or optimism? Maybe both, Dax said, or maybe just human. Good, Serath said, smiling. Then I'm learning from the best. They turned away from the past and walked toward their future. Two unlikely souls who'd found each other in the dark between the stars and chosen to build something beautiful from the wreckage. Together, the way all good stories end and better ones begin.